in your high school. So that is kind of one part of our roots of the philosophy or ideas. It's very familiar for the Japanese. But for us, Japanese, these are the classics, kind of classics. Our modern ideas are really largely westernized. And so I'm afraid that many of the modern Japanese, especially youngsters, do not believe such of the chill, moral aspects of the Confucianism. So how about in the China, the modern China, the still Confucianism ideas of Confucianism are real, the works as a kind of norm or some contribution to the philosophical ideas?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Also in China, we made a great contribution. A lot of Confucian classic works, classical works. But at present, we also confront this problem. How to learn more from our traditional culture, because which is contained with very abundant resources in ethics, in moral philosophy. And I think at first, for us, we should do some research, what we can get and we can learn from the ancient thoughts. For example, regarding and related to this question of human-animal relationship, I think it's in ancient time, our ancestors have a lot of wisdom, regarding this kind of relationship. So it's the first task for us to dig into and to apply into our traditional resources, try to find this idea, view, and to inform us their attitude toward this kind of issues, and then to make our argument more justifiable. I think that's the first job for us to do.
Thank you very much. Okay, thank you. Thank
you very much for your attention. I forgot to mention because the time.
Okay, so the last presenter before lunch is Matthew MacLeod, who is in the program and is going to not be using PowerPoint but speaking as yes. And we had an interesting discussion on REN. We'll have a session on love tomorrow morning, so that may be interesting to reflect more on the tradition. Maybe here is easier for people to see you. Okay, thank you.
My tardiness, but finally I did arrive, and I'm able to talk to you all this morning. My name is Dr. Matthew MacLeod. I'm from Canada, from Vancouver. I live in Thailand. I've been living there for 6 years, and what I'm going to talk to you about today is communicating bad news to patients in circumstances in which there is no protocol. Now, the patients that I'm talking about are terminally ill patients, primarily cancer patients, HIV/AIDS patients. In the eyes of the medical field, communicating bad news to a patient is strategically formulated as a plan of action that must be learned to enable a physician to be properly trained and emotionally equipped to support his or her patient through a difficult situation. In the eyes of a patient, it is much more simplified. They want an honest and empathetic evaluation of their condition from their doctor. Physicians should give information on which patients can build their hope. They should be adaptable, recognizing the fact that every patient is different, and realize that they can never be 100% right all the time in communicating something as imponderable as death. Physicians must be honest to themselves and deliver the message as if they were the recipient. Now, there are a few points that I want to focus on. Honest and empathetic. Well, undoubtedly all physicians are honest to their patients. Empathetic, not all the time. Some doctors are very empathetic, others have some work to do. Now, being empathetic with your patient does not start at the time when you deliver bad news. It depends upon whether you are given a patient at the time of terminal illness, or that you have built a relationship with that patient through a course of time. If you have had time to build a relationship with your patient, you should feel much, much more comfortable in communicating anything to them. Now, when you build a relationship with patients that you have had for 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, 3 years, 5 years, you can do that in little ways. By finding out what kind of music they like, what kind of literature they read, what kind of sports do they play. These may seem very simple questions to you, but when you go visit a patient, or when physicians visit their patients, they can build these relationships and make them stronger and make the patient feel much more comfortable in the presence of doctors. Simple questions, taking an interest in them and their families. How many kids do they have? What do you do for hobbies? Etc., etc. So the communication should start immediately with simple questions, building the relationship, building a foundation in which if things turn bad later on, it's much more easy for the doctor to communicate some bad news to a patient. Now, I have one thing that I find very important, and this goes through a true life experience with myself. It's the power of touch. Now, some doctors feel very, very reticent about touching the hand of a patient. They want to keep distance, professional distance. But what I've found out is that if you just lay a hand on the leg or the hand, that means an enormous amount to a patient. It means there's some connection there between doctor and patient in which I truly believe in. Empathy. You have to feel the way the patient feels. You have to put yourself in their shoes. Reverse the roles for a little while. Because they want you to truly understand them. And you have to realize, or doctors have to realize, that every patient is different. And that's why I say in which there is no protocol, but because the way patients are, no one patient is the same. What works for one patient may not work for another one. And so, so adaptability and flexibility for a doctor dealing with every patient that they deal with is very important. They must realize that from a teenager to a young adult to a middle-aged person to an elderly person, each person wants a different approach. Now, unfortunately, a lot of doctors, they approach each patient the same way. And it is much more beneficial for the medical field and for physicians to look at communication for everybody as flexible and adaptable. It's like teaching. You don't teach a subject the same way to a certain group of people that you do to another group of people. You have to be adaptable and flexible and realize to whom you are speaking. And death. It is when we are born, the relationship we have with our mother or father. When we get married, the relationship we have with our wife or our husband. All right? Now, another important relationship, and probably the second after a mother and father and husband and wife, is the doctor-patient relationship. Confidentiality. Sometimes patients tell things to the doctors that they don't tell to their husbands, their wives, their mother, their father, etc. And so that relationship is one of the most relationships that we will ever encounter in our life. And so, patients have to be able to talk to doctors in a way that they can talk to their spouses, that they can talk to their mother and father, to the people closest to them. Another area that I want to talk about this morning is hope. Now, in the medical field, I hear a lot of false hope. Don't give your patients false hope. Well, what keeps a patient hanging on and surviving and battling and fighting? What keeps them hanging on? Or what keeps them wanting to live? Well, it's very simple. It's hope. They hope for something. They hope for something. When all medical alternatives have been exhausted, what else can they do? Lie there in bed and wait? No. They hope, and they hope, and they don't believe sometimes the medical alternatives have been exhausted, but they want to look elsewhere. And this is where doctors sometimes, physicians, the medical field in general, should look at the patient and say, all medical alternatives have been exhausted. It's up to you now. Because we don't know the power of the mind, the power of the spirit, the power of fight, the power of will of patients. It's very, very, very strong. And so when medical alternatives have been exhausted, patients can take over. The medical field should not be afraid to work in collaboration with patients and say, okay, now it's up to you. But at the same time, physicians and doctors should be in collaboration with that patient. I'm there for you. All right, we're going to work on this together. But now it's up to you. And hope is one thing that is looked at in the medical field as not solid. It's almost telling them a lie. All medical alternatives have been exhausted, but I don't want to mention hope because I might get in trouble. I don't want to give you false information here. The cancer has spread, but there is some hope, but I don't want to say it. So that's where the patient has to take over. When the medical field communicates with patients, terminally ill patients, they have choices to get involved. And I mentioned it earlier, they get involved right from the beginning in learning about their patients, communicating bad news at the end of the line much easier. All right. Physicians can never be 100%. Can never be 100%. The medical field does not know. What I wanted to leave you with is that was a very personal reflection. My brother died of a terminal illness. When he was diagnosed with it, I was with him in the doctor's office. And I saw the coolness that it was delivered with. There was no empathy, there was no warmth. He came in, he mentioned what he had, and he left. I mean, that was it. This is what you have. Maybe you have this many months to live. I don't want any questions. And he was too busy. Had to make his rounds. Of course, doctors are very busy. And I understand that. They have many rounds to make. You know, they have many patients. But we have to figure out ways that when doctors are communicating something as imponderable as death, to make it much more empathetic for patients. There has to be that collaboration between physician and patient. Because after we're born, death is all there is. And anyway, to reflect on what I was saying a minute ago, that my brother and I sat there in the room, and he looked at me, I looked at him. And he just shrugged his shoulders and went home. And that was it. And so it was a very cool delivery. And what I want to stress is that physicians have to build relationships. Physicians have to build relationships with their patients. They have to know about their patients. They have to learn about them. Because the more they learn, the easier it is to communicate. Easier it is to communicate bad news. When you have a protocol in terms of delivering bad news, it's too formulated. It's too strategic. There can be 14 points to learn. Well, what if you're through point number 6 and you forget the next 8 points? And patients know when you're talking to them in a scientific manner. Especially terminally ill patients. They've already gone on to a different level. They're almost on a holistic level, spiritual level that people who are not sick cannot understand. So that's what I want to leave you with, and thank you very much for your time.
There's time for a couple of questions, and I see 2 gentlemen there. Maybe 3, since we're okay, 3 questions.
I'm Aamir from the Center of Biomedical Ethics and Culture, Pakistan. But I'm also a general surgeon, and this is a question as a surgeon. Thank you very much for a very stimulating talk, and thank you for not contaminating it with PowerPoint slides. This makes it even more interesting. And first, a brief comment from a direct quote that I took from your talk. But about physicians, you were saying that some are empathetic, others have some work to do, which implied that because they're busy, they cannot be empathetic. So busy people are devoid of empathy. Is that what you were implying? That is one point that I wanted to ask. The other thing that I wanted to ask was, you said that there is a lot of virtue in hope. At the end of the line, when there is nothing left, there is only hope. So in order to prolong this hope, is there some virtue in lying? So can lying be virtuous at that point in time?
Thank you very much for your question. Yeah, absolutely. I'm just writing down your points. Busy people are void of empathy. Not at all. We're talking about doctors who have many rounds and a very, very busy schedule. Somewhere in between, there has to be some environment where they can learn empathy. Now, whether it be in the patient's room, it could be. Remember, as educators, as physicians, we can learn from patients. Patients learn from us, students learn from us, educators learn from students. Physicians can learn empathy from patients. It depends upon the patient, etc., etc. But they're not void. And what I do suggest is there has to be more focus on if this is the right phrase, and empathetic seminars for physicians in a hospital setting. Wouldn't take very long, maybe 15 minutes, maybe 20 minutes. Now, to enhance your empathetic skills for your patients, 15 to 20 minutes is not very long. It's not very long. And there can be recurring seminars to reinforce what we've already learned. And so a lot of institutions should be starting programs like this. There are some in the United States. Northwestern University in Chicago has a great program for communication skills for physicians. Does that answer your first question?
Sure. All right. Let's get the other two comments and then come back to a general response from that to them. Okay. Philip?
I'm Abdul Sumudipal. I'm a psychiatrist attached to King's College University of London partly, and I'm from Institute of Research and Development in Sri Lanka. My question is, what's your position about when you have a bad news, do you have to necessarily break it? And how would you put yourself in when the patient doesn't want to know the bad news, but the relatives insist? On the other hand, when the patient does not want to know, but the relatives feel that you ought to. The third position is neither the patient nor the relatives wants to know it, but you as a physician very strongly feel that you need to break it because otherwise there may be litigation. So three situations. How would you deal with that?
And we're going to have Norman's question and then I think you want to answer.
Norman Ford from Australia. I certainly believe that a lot of empathy training is needed in health professionals. But I think we've got to take the patient as he or she is.
Right.
I think there's a whole gamut of reality within the patient that goes beyond life on this world.
Right.
There's the life of the spirit.
Right.
Now, many of the great religions believe there's a life beyond this one, including myself. Christians do. I think the Islamic faith does believe in this. I do think that doctors can't do it all because they don't have the time. But in hospitals now there are pastoral care workers who pick up this slack and do this. Last year in Melbourne I organised a conference. About 170 people came, all-day conference on spirituality and end-of-life treatment. And they were wrapped with the idea how to bring that in. That hope continues if you've got a life beyond.
Right.
The end of fetal life is birth to life in the world. The end of life in the world is birth to life beyond the world. And that can resonate and do a lot of wonders for hope.
Thank you very much. All right. Okay. On your second question, was it clear on the first question? Now, the second question was can line be virtuous from doctor to a patient?
Yeah. Please who?
Are you a physician?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Have you lied to a patient?
I won't tell you.
Okay, then that's my answer right there. Can lying be virtuous? No. And this is my opinion. No. Because when they're coming to the end, or maybe nothing's 100%, then honesty is the best. Honesty is the best, and that's where building a solid relationship right from the beginning. Now I understand a lot of doctors get handed patients. Well, people are well into their illness, so they don't have the time to build the solid foundation. But some doctors do. They have maybe 2 years, 3 years, 1 year, at least 6 months to build something. And the more you learn about your patient, and the more your patient divulges, this is why I talk about simple questions, the easier it is for you to talk to them. And at that time, you don't have to lie because you feel very comfortable with them. And you've encouraged them to ask you questions. So there's two-way communication going on. Now there's one small problem with this. A lot of patients are very scared to challenge their doctors, to ask questions, to say, what do you mean? They're reticent. They feel that many physicians are on a pedestal and the patients are down here. But it should be equal. in terms of communication. I'm not talking about medicine. I'm talking about communication. It should be on an equal playing field that communication and doctor can be able to talk to each other. And so lying should not even come into the equation. You should feel so comfortable talking to them and encourage them to ask anything they want. Does that?
I think actually, it's a very big topic. We had also 3 more questions from Apollo that I think you maybe should discuss at lunch, because so in the bad news discussion, let's replace it with a good news discussion at its lunchtime. But I thank you very much, Matthew, for the interesting questions. I think, as you may not, I've heard of the people here are medical practitioners, so quite a lot, and these issues are very hotly discussed. I have several announcements before we close, very important announcements. At the end of today's talks, which is scheduled for 6:45, but currently we're half an hour behind schedule, so we'll see what time that is. We're going to have a group photo of everyone on stage. So if you're still surviving at the end of the day, you'll be in the group photo. Outside we have 2 copies of a participants list for you to tick if it's correct and for you to write corrections if it's not correct. And we will put it on the website after the conference so that you can all access it. There's a lot of details. Your name may not be listed there, so please do that. There's a consent form that like you consent to taking a video and tape recording. And if you don't consent, also please express that by putting the form down there. Asian Bioethics Association membership forms are on the back table with the books, and you can put your own display material on the table at the back there. And if we need more space, we will have more display. Scholarship awardees, please come to the cashier desk for reimbursement forms on your way out to lunch. And lunch, you should take your name tag, and it's on the same floor. You go out the door, turn left to the Ayataya room. And we have lunch, and let's try to start again at 1:30 back here. We're running about half an hour late. Okay? So please enjoy your lunch. Thank you for all the presenters. Thank you.
First of all, thank you very much for the organizers for inviting me for this chance to be in Bangkok. My talk will be about my own experience, the experience we had in Israel over the last 12 years as the director of the National Laboratory for the Genetics of Israeli Populations, which I will tell you about in 10 minutes that I have. Over the last few years there have been a lot of discussions, workshops devoted to ethical aspects of running large DNA collections. I will tell you a little bit about our experience in Israel and about my own view that there are much more difficult issues, much more difficult ethical issues related to medicine than just running DNA collections, especially what to do with the data that is collected and how to improve medicine, keep medicine equity in medicine so that everyone can enjoy the benefits of the research that is coming from all those DNA biobanks. So as I mentioned, this laboratory exists already for 12 years. It was established in 1994 by the Israeli Academy of Sciences and Humanities, which is the reason we are called the National Laboratory. We are located at Tel Aviv University, the Sackler Faculty of Medicine. So right here on the 10th floor is our laboratory in the Faculty of Medicine building. The laboratory has a web page that explains about our activities, how the samples are collected, what samples are available, and how it is possible to obtain them from the laboratory. And I should tell you that Israel, although it's a very small country, just 20,000 square kilometers, about 7 million people, we are very ethnically diverse, and the reason is that after the State of Israel was established in 1948, many Jewish communities from all over the world immigrated to Israel. From as far as India and many countries in Europe, Africa and Asia. So Israel is a country of immigrants. And also, the Arabs in Israel are ethnically diverse, and there are several large communities that do not mix with one another. The Palestinians, the Jews, and the Bedouin Arabs. So all these big cities of Israel create a large mixture ethnically. And in the context of biomedical research, as Professor Moore mentioned earlier this morning, it's very important to know about ethnicity, because genes, polymorphism in genes are different between ethnicities, and when we try to make personalized medicine, to use pharmacogenetics for improving medicine, it's important to compare between ethnicities, to use controls from each disease from the same ethnic groups, otherwise we have no data, no conclusions. So this map briefly shows the immigration to Israel over the last 60 years. You can see that there were very large communities immigrating from the former Soviet Union, from Russia, also from Poland, Romania, a very large community from Morocco. Now that's shown here are thousands of people immigrating. For small countries, are still very large numbers. And also many communities from Asia, from Turkey, Syria, Iraq, Iran, from Yemen, and also a community from Asian state in South India. All these communities were genetically, geographically, and genetically isolated because they didn't intermix with one another for nearly 2,000 years since the destruction of the Second Temple in Israel. So, of course, over the years, these populations mixed with local communities, so the genetics are different. So the laboratory is a collection. We have a collection of about nearly 2,000 cell lines and matching DNA samples. So we collect cell lines because they are much more useful for genetic research, because we can study not only the genetics, also the proteomics of the cells. The human lymphocytes can be immortalized in growing culture, but this way we also can make RNA and proteins from the cells of this person and compare the phenotype of the cell. We can treat the cells with various drugs and see how genotypic differences express in phenotypic ways. All the donors for the repository are Israeli citizens, the guys over 18 years, and all the activities of the repository are supervised by the Institutional Review Board of Tel Aviv University. On the website of the lab, you can see what we have in the collection now, numbers of individuals, from whom we made lymphoblastoid cell lines, immortalized cell lines, and people, researchers, could purchase from us for free a cell line or DNA samples from ethnically defined individuals. And as explained on the website, ethnicity is self-defined. We do not try to determine in any way, just ask the donors how they define their own ethnicity. And for Jews, we sit down asking about the grandparents, going back 2 generations. On the website, you can see a list of over 20 papers, 20 studies that were already published using the samples. So the studies have been useful for many sorts of research, biomedical research. Cells in the collection more or less represent the makeup of Israel. With, you can see Ashkenazi Jews are the largest Jewish ethnic group in Israel. Arabs make up about a quarter of the population, and then we have Oriental Jews, Ethiopian Jews from Africa, North African Jews with a very large community from Morocco. Sephardi Jews are Jews that originally lived in Spain until about 500 years ago, when they were forced to leave Spain following the Conquistador. There are Jews came to Israel from Turkey and Bulgaria. Now, making a brief comparison with other large biobanks that have cell lines, like Cornell in the US, or ABC in the US, the European collection of cell banks in the UK, or Genocom in France, all these collections are much larger than the Israel collection, but the samples are mostly from people with monogenic disorders, and ethnicity is not defined for most of the samples. So our collection, the NMGAP, is unique in that donors are healthy individuals, not with any diseases, and the ethnicity is self-defined for each donor. samples are coded, so that they are not anonymized. We do not try to anonymize samples. And by the way, I believe that true anonymization is not possible, because if you have enough phenotypic data and genotypic data, it's always possible to identify winners. As genomics is becoming more easily possible, and we are talking about $1,000 genome few years in the future, it will not be possible to truly anonymize it. So what we do, we code the samples, and this is an example of how researchers will obtain samples from us. Get 4-letter codes, and ethnicity and gender. And this is all the information that is supplied. The consent form includes the statement that the individual understands the reasons for the donation of the blood samples. Then this is not the consent form, this is the request form. So when a researcher requests samples from us, they sign that the samples will be used only for research and not for commercial purposes, and are not allowed to be distributed further to other laboratories. Samples that were already requested during the past 12 years were mostly for the Ashkenazi Jews. The reason is that this is a very homogeneous ethnic group due to a bottleneck that occurred about 300 years ago. So people belonging to Ashkenazi Jews like myself are very genetically homogeneous, which makes it easy to study genetic diseases, and especially cancer risks. So there's a lot of interest in cancer research for the Ashkenazi Jews. Other samples that were requested were from the Arabs, from Oriental Jews, North African Jews, etc. In countries that the samples go to are mostly the USA, because most of the money for research is in America. Most of the samples requested were by researchers in the USA, but also in Japan, UK, Canada, Italy, and other countries. And of course, researchers in Israel requested about a quarter of the 15,000 DNA samples that we distributed so far over the last 20 years. Most of the requests come from research universities, about a quarter from national research institutes, mostly the National Institute of Health in the USA. We also give samples to the National Cancer Institute in Japan and to other research centers. Now I want to change gears a little bit and tell you, although the audience are not so trained in pharmacology, but still there are many practicing physicians, so we know about the importance of pharmacogenetics. And just from the many teaching slides that I give to my students when teaching about pharmacogenetics, which is a major research interest, this is one example that I want to show you about the drug called acetaminophen, known as Tylenol or Altamol, which is the most sold over-the-counter drug in Western medicine, in the USA, in Europe, I believe also in Japan, and in many Asian countries, the most sold over-the-counter drug. And this drug is extremely toxic to some people because there's a product that is formed by the liver enzyme called cytochrome P452E1, which in most people only about 5% of the acetaminophen will go to this toxic molecule. But if some people are deficient for genetic reasons for this enzyme called UGT or for this enzyme called GSP, which degrade this molecule to less toxic forms, then these people, in such individuals, much more of the drug will be converted to this toxic molecule. And many cases of liver intoxication are the direct result of genetic insufficiency in these enzymes. It's important to identify these individuals with pharmacogenetics research and to compare and devise tools to protect them for better drug safety and drug efficacy. I believe that a major ethical problem is not so much running DNA pipelines in medicine, but providing equal medicine to people of different ethnicities. And I think that most medicines today are tested in clinical trials, mostly from Caucasians. And very little is known about how these drugs work in people from Africa and from Asia, which is a big issue because there are not enough incentives. For example, although in the United States, the Federal Food and Drug Administration suggests to include minorities, this is not done because this means much more money for developing the drug for companies. They prefer to do the studies just in Caucasians, which is easier for them. And the result is things like this. This is just one example. of many examples in the literature where drugs are very useful for Caucasians, but not useful at all sometimes for other people. This is a study published already 5 years ago in the New England Journal of Medicine by excellent time, who showed that another pill, the most popular angiotensin-converting enzyme, is very useful for heart disease patients who are Caucasian. So there's one here. So the difference is very huge. If you take another pill, you can be safe of future hospitalizations. While for African Americans, there is no difference if they took another pill or didn't take it, there's no difference. We also published several studies comparing ethnic groups in Israel about several drug metabolism enzymes. This is just one example. If anyone is interested in writing, please to send me examples of studies published from our collection. I just want to give one example that is not related to biomedicine but to history. As Moses mentioned earlier today, such collections are also important and can give interesting data about human migrations. So this is from a study that was published 7 years ago in the National Academy of Sciences in the USA, studied by Aamir and collaborators from the University of Arizona. This is a pattern showing differences in the Y chromosome, which is only inherited on the paternal line, only from fathers to sons. And since this chromosome doesn't change with the partner chromosome, it's very easy to use these genetic differences to follow history of human migrations. So when comparing different ethnic groups of Jews, all the triangles shown here are Jews, Ashkenazi Jews, Jews from Rome, Jews from Kurdistan, North African Jews, Near Eastern Jews, Yemenite Jews, all these on the Y chromosome fall very closely together, although they look very differently from one another, and of course they're completely different genetic variability on other chromosomes. But on the Y chromosome you can see the closeness of all these. And an important finding, with a lot of maybe political implications, is that the Palestinians are exactly in the middle of this Jewish group, so that the Jews and the Palestinians are closely related on the Y chromosome. So many Jews and many Palestinians are not happy to learn about this, but this is a fact. Jews and Palestinians are very closely related historically. We all originate from the Middle East, and we are very close, just as very related. So I don't have time to go into the other things that you can find on my abstract, or I'm pleased to send a presentation for anyone who is interested. So I just go fast over the consent form, which is standard. This information is found in the abstract. Refusal to donate, just mentioned very briefly, that is found in many biomedical studies. Women are much more altruistic. You see also in Israel, women are much more likely to donate than men. And you can see when we watch donors as well. And also older people are more altruistic, tend to donate much more than young people. You can see this kind of very much. So I just conclude with saying that the most important question that face medicine today, in my view, are what do we do about people who do not have the right genotype for available medicines, the medicines that will be coming with all the genomics knowledge, and how can society ensure better equity in healthcare along with better, more personalized medicine? Thank you very much.
We have time for a couple of questions.
I'm Alistair Campbell from Singapore. Very interested in your paper, thank you, it's excellent. You mentioned that the data is not fully anonymized, so presumably you have a key that would allow you to go back to the individuals who originally donated.
Yes, we have we just keep the consent forms. The consent forms include the signature, the full name of the person, and we keep the original consent form.
So would you, I just have a question if that's so, would you then at any point agree to, say, recontacting the people who donated for the purpose of somebody else's research that would be a mixture of genetic and epidemiological, or would you not?
I would not do it myself, of course, but if there would be a good reason, we would approach the Institutional Review Board and ask for permission to recontact. but this has not occurred in 12 years that were active, including about 30 papers that were published. No one has ever asked to contact individuals.
I just wondered whether you might have wanted to amend your consent form in some way to indicate that it might be possible for a person to be contacted in the future. They could still refuse, of course, but it seems like perhaps closed. You may have a problem with the IRB agreeing to something when it's not been in the original consent form or getting back to the original rules.
So I agree that this is something to consider.
I have a sociological question. You said that the findings were uncomfortable, both the Palestinians and Jews. Were they uncomfortable to fundamentalist Jews like the Jafarey Jews on the view of Jews as a chosen people? So what you say is that they people and they are not biologically the chosen people.
I'm not sure I follow what you asked me.
No, okay. Your research created issues among the Palestinians and the Jews, both uncomfortable. Now, in Israel, there are very fundamentalist Jews, the guys with the caps and so on. And now, by showing the genetic diversity of Jews, were they uncomfortable that they were no longer the chosen people?
This study was reported in the media, but there was no follow-up, there was no public interest in this. And sadly, I would like to see some discussion of the meaning of this data. So it was reported once by the general media, but only once, and there was no follow-up discussion of what this means.
Darryl from Japan. In your consent form, I have two questions. In your consent form, do you inform the donor sample which kind of research you are going to conduct? Because you said the sample is used for only for research, but which kind of research?
The language of the consent forms says that the samples will be used for improvement of medicine. So it's a very general, it's a wide consent, it's what we call the blanket consent.
I see, okay.
It says it will not be used for commercial purposes, but it will be used for research so that medicine can be improved.
And the data collected or data analyzed may be used by the, for example, pharmaceuticals or only for basic researchers. Is it possible, for example, is it possible for a pharmaceutical company to ask you to use the data analyzed in the laboratory?
The data is used, this is not only from my collection, but from all biobanks, all large biobanks in the world. Data are used by commercial companies because they have to develop medicines. Not the actual data themselves from each individual, but the findings, the correlation between a certain polymorphic gene and a certain risk, cancer risk, a risk for an adverse drug reaction. This is being done, but the samples themselves cannot be commercialized. So, for example, a company cannot ask to use a certain genotype, a certain DNA sample as a control in some positive or negative control. So this is commercialization is not allowed. But the data that come from these studies, this is I think the same from all biobanks, are used by companies.
The company should pay some amount of money for getting the data.
Each user, users pay user fees, also universities. And this is how we support the general collection.
Thank you very much. Can I now request Kizumishi Awaya come to the stage? So maybe we can move on to Karori, Mbugua.
So thank you very much. Now,
Perhaps, thank you very much. I'd like to begin by saying that I'm a philosopher who has recently become interested in ethical issues arising from recent advances in biotechnology. So my paper is entitled Stem Cell Research, Science, Ethics and the Media. Because of time, I will not spend a lot of time on the biology behind stem cell technology or looking at the ethical arguments advanced for and against stem cell research, human embryonic stem cell research. Okay, there are basically two research programs involving stem cells, embryonic and adult stem cell research programs. And within the embryonic stem cell research program, we have two further sub-programs. NCNT created stem cells and IVF created embryos. Now, embryonic stem cell research program raises ethical difficulties similar to those raised by abortion, because in the process of harvesting these cells, an embryo has to be destroyed. And this debate, in fact, revolves around the moral status of the RA embryo. I must point out that Robert Ranza of the Advanced Center for Cell Technology in Massachusetts, sometime last year reported in the journal Nature that he had managed to harvest human embryonic stem cells without destroying the embryo. Now, in contrast, adult stem cells do not raise any ethical difficulties. In fact, with adult stem cells, researchers are able to realize medical gains without ethical pain. Now, when you look at the despite the demonstrated promise of adult stem cells, the popular media has continued to create the impression that only embryonic stem cells can be used for therapeutic purposes. In fact, adult stem cell successes have been given a near total blackout by the liberal media. And this dramatic attention from the media is partly occasioned, in my view, by the conflation of stem cell research with cloning. Most people tend to equate embryonic stem cell research with therapeutic cloning and are fascinated by the possibility of implanting an SCNT created embryo in the womb of a surrogate mother to produce a human being that is a genetic replica of the somatic donor. However, we know that embryonic stem cells can be harvested either from either SCNT created embryos or IVF created embryos. And many of the existing stem cell lines today were derived from excess embryos from IVF clinics. It's important to note that whereas human adult stem cells have been successfully used in therapy, no successful clinical trials using embryonic stem cells have been carried out in humans. However, research on the existing human embryonic stem cell lines is not as promising as the popular media would have us believe. The therapeutic potential of embryonic stem cells has been grossly overestimated. By contrast, a survey of recent articles appearing in the leading science journals such as Science, Nature, Lancet, Stem Cells, Blood, Arthritis and Rheumatism, and Cell revealed major breakthroughs in embryonic stem cell research. In adult stem cell research. Adult stem cell transplants are already being used in the treatment of cancer and a number of autoimmune diseases such as rheumatoid arthritis. And a recent review of diseases treatable by adult stem cells reveals that in the past decade, over 700 patients suffering from a variety of autoimmune diseases have been treated using adult stem cells. Now, putting the ethical considerations aside, there are technological advantages of using adult stem cells instead of embryonic stem cells. Deriving stem cells from a patient's own body tissue entirely circumvents the problem of immune rejection. To overcome this problem, proponents of the embryonic stem cell therapies will have to create patient-specific stem cells through SCNT. Unfortunately, this technology is yet to be perfected. Creating embryos through SCNT requires vast quantities of human eggs, whose harvesting is itself problematic. It's useful to recall that it took 277 attempts to clone Dolly, the sheep. Now, the concern of biased media reporting on stem cells research has been raised by a number of writers. For example, Wilk and Bates have pointed out that to date there have been no human successes in the use of the embryonic stem cells, yet nearly all that we hear from the so-called mainstream players and biotech industries is the promise of embryonic stem cell research. The two others then go on to give a long list of diseases that can be treated using adult stem cells. And Wellesley Smith expresses similar concerns. He says that the pattern in the media reportage about stem cells is growing very wearisome. When a research advance occurs with embryonic stem cells, the media usually give the story the brush treatment. However, when researchers announce even greater successes using adult stem cells, the media reportage is generally about as intense as an excited as a stifled yawn. And in a letter to Nature journal, James Shari argues that the decline of public enthusiasm for any type of stem cell research has been caused by the hype of embryonic stem cells. And this excitement is best exemplified by media reports on the now discredited findings of the South Korean scientists. I will not go into that. So my argument is that biased media reporting is undermining the quality of public debate on the ethics of stem cell research. And if the citizenry is to develop informed opinions on important issues such as stem cell research without imposing the unrealistic expectation that they be trained as scientists, the popular media must ensure that the scientific findings are accurately and objectively reported. The public must be made aware of the two main sources of stem cells and their distinguishing characteristics. So in the light of the foregoing considerations, by your conclusion, I am questioning why medical researchers should continue pursuing embryonic stem cell programs when an ethically and problematic alternative already exists. Indeed, the principle of subsidiarity should apply in this case. This principle states that if two or more types of research can attain the same results, then one should pursue the research that is least offensive, or at least least problematic ethically. Adult stem cell research program is the least morally offensive, in my view, of the two research programs. And I suggest that we consider the ethics of having, we should have a moratorium on human embryonic stem cell research, so long as it involves the destruction of the human embryo. What I'm suggesting here is that before taxpayer money is spent on research involving the destruction of human embryos, arguments should be made to persuade the majority of taxpayers that such research is ethically acceptable. I'm also saying that medical progress is a great good, but it should not, as Eric Parent says, trump all others. In particular, it does not trump the good of transparent and respectful public debate. I'm saying that the popular media can enrich a new public debate by reporting accurately and without bias on the advances being made in both embryonic and the adult stem cell research. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much for the interesting talk. And there is room for some questions over here. And while we invite questions, I would also like to invite Professor Nares to please come and join us on the stage. Questions?